conventional room entry is a quiet, methodical, continuous movement through the entry point. Resistance will be met with resistance, as dictated by the subject's actions. If a subject is known to be inside, all alternatives should be evaluated before entering, such as calling the subject out to you, or securing the area and escape routes and other plans made for the arrest. The following video consists of various entry techniques to be considered by the arrest or search team: limited penetration, button hook, crisscross, diagonal, combination, and three-person entry technique. This video depicts various room configurations and provides some basic techniques used with team movement. This video does not assume to address every technique available to a clearing team. It should be noted that in producing this training video, the locations and rooms used were selected because they were conducive to filming and producing a visual reference as to the fundamental movements within each technique. Situations encountered in the course of an actual operation may require adjustments to these techniques by your team. When making the actual entry, first, visual clearing techniques should be used if possible before moving in. Second, make entry only when ready. Third, strive for a simple plan: quickness through the entry point, safety, and superiority of personnel and firepower. Fourth, do not hesitate in the doorway. Move quickly through the entry point. And fifth, cover assigned areas of responsibility. Identify and control all potential threats and areas of danger. If additional team members will be entering the room after you, allow for enough space between yourself and the wall for them to pass behind you. The limited penetration is a technique that should be considered outside the entry point. After the area adjacent to the doorway has been visually cleared, the entry team member thrusts his or her weapon arm forward into the room towards the area that needs to be covered. Only the shooter's eye and arm are exposed to the potential subject in the room. The advantages of this technique are: 1. Team members are least exposed to dangers inside of the room. 2. The body remains a small target and behind cover or concealment. The disadvantages of this technique are: 1. Movement has to be coordinated between team members. Backside coverage must be used when necessary. 2. If a visual clearing technique is not employed beforehand, the weapon can possibly be grabbed by a subject who may be standing by the doorway. 3. Team members must rely on one-handed shooting techniques. The button hook is a quick movement that allows both team members to enter the room simultaneously. The advantage of this technique is it allows for simultaneous coverage of opposing corners of the room. The disadvantages of the button hook technique are: 1. It requires coordinated movement of team members, and 2. Not all doorways are wide enough to accommodate a simultaneous entry. When confronted with a narrow doorway, other entry techniques should be considered. The crisscross is another technique that can be used when the entry team members are at both sides of the doorway. Deploying from both sides of the doorway allows both team members to enter in a crisscross fashion. The advantage of this technique is it's fast and will separate a subject's focus and create lag time while he or she decides which potential target to concentrate on first. The disadvantage of the crisscross technique is it requires coordinated movement to avoid a collision in the doorway. The following techniques can be performed when team members are on the same side of the doorway. The first technique to be considered is the diagonal. This technique is best used if there are cover and concealment opportunities available in the room or the near wall is adjacent to the doorway opening. On the same side of the doorway, both team members simultaneously move diagonally through the entrance, ideally to some position of cover or concealment inside the room. The advantages of this technique are: 1. It can be used when confronted with a room that has a near wall adjacent to the doorway opening. 2. It is a fast technique for both team members. 3. It may offer a position of cover or concealment to team members upon entry. The disadvantage of the diagonal technique is it requires coordinated movement to ensure adequate spacing between team members once inside the room. An additional technique to use when both team members are on the same side of the doorway is the combination. In this technique, team members enter and move towards opposite corners of the room. This ensures their separation, causing a potential lag time in the subject's reaction to their entry. The advantage of this technique is its simplicity. The second team member simply moves in the opposite direction of the first team member. The disadvantage of the combination technique is the first team member could potentially have his or her back exposed to an area of danger. To alleviate this, it's recommended that the first team member button hook and the second team member immediately follow using a crossing technique. An inherent disadvantage to all two-person entry techniques is that each team member is potentially faced with two areas of responsibility, their respective corners and the center of the room. To address this, it's recommended that the three-person entry technique be considered. One option is for the first team member to button hook into the room. The second team member immediately performs a crossing technique, moving to the opposing corner. The third team member immediately follows the second and takes a position to either side of the doorway, ensuring coverage of the center of the room. In this manner, both the corners and the center of the room can be addressed simultaneously. Once inside the room to be searched, the team will frequently encounter closets that need to be cleared. This is best accomplished if one person covers the closet while the other performs techniques such as the use of a mirror, quick peeks, or slicing the pie. Ballistic shields should be considered when clearing closets and other areas of danger. Another area to be cleared that's frequently encountered in a room is the space behind furniture or underneath a bed. It is highly recommended that these areas of danger be cleared using visual clearing techniques. While one team member covers the danger area, the second team member approaches and appropriately clears it.
Listen to the next voice you hear.
All room entry techniques, while infinitely better than rushing into the room, are tricky to perform and are risky. Entry techniques require practice with all arrest or search team members in order to conduct them smoothly and confidently. These entry techniques should only be used if all other alternatives to entering have been evaluated.